Have you ever had one of those days when nothing seems to go right? When you get to the bedtime and you go, man, I am glad that's over. I'm ready to start over again. I'm talking about one of those days when you spilled your coffee in the morning, you run out of gas on the way to wherever it is that you have to be at right at a certain time, realize you forgot your wallet or your purse when you got to the store, but not until you had already picked out everything and had gotten to the checkout register. Isn't that how that always happens? You never realize that you forgot your wallet like as you're walking into the store. It's when you have a whole basket and it's taking you an hour in the grocery store. Your kids are screaming in the back seat, dinner's boiling over, and to top it all off, that night as you turned the lights off and you made your way to bed, you finally figured out why God gave you that pinky toe? To find furniture in the dark. You know that's why it's there, right? There is a great children's book centered around this very idea, and actually a movie has been made and is coming out very soon. Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day. Written by Judith Vorst. And yeah, we got this little cartoon. I'm in a very bad mood, so nobody better mess with me today, boy. You ever had one of those days? Has your spouse or kids or mom or dad, have they ever had one of those days? You just kind of want to hide in the other room. Let me read just the first couple of pages. I went to bed this morning with gum in my mouth, and when I got out of bed this morning, I tripped on a skateboard. And by mistake, I dropped my sweater in the sink while the water was running, and I could tell it was going to be a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. At breakfast, Anthony found a Corvette Stingray car kit in his breakfast cereal box, and Nick found a junior undercover agent code ring in his breakfast cereal box. But in my breakfast cereal box, all I found was breakfast cereal. I think I'll move to Australia. In the carpool, Mrs. Gibson let Becky have the seat by the window. Audrey and Elliot got seats by the window too. I said I was being scrunched. I said I was being smushed. I said if I don't get a seat by the window, I'm going to be car seat. And nobody even answered. I could tell it was going to be a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. That's where Peter found himself in our story this morning. Imagine with me, as we remember the details of the story that led up to this point, Jesus, fresh off of his teaching in the synagogue, moves church outside like we're going to do next Sunday evening, and he's standing by the shore of the Sea of Galilee, and a crowd has gathered around to hear what he has to say, and such a crowd has gathered. In fact, so many people have gathered that he's being scrunched closer and closer to the shore, the waves starting to kind of lap at his feet. And meanwhile, here's Peter sitting on the shore tending to his nets. Come in from a long night of fishing, and things are ripped up because he probably fished a lot like me and caught more sticks and old boots and other people's lines than fish. And so he's over here tending to his nets, and he's had his own terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. Actually, it was his terrible, horrible, no good, very bad night. Here's Peter, tired and achy down to his bones. He's pulled his boat up on the shore and he's cleaning things off, and he's trying to get his nets ready so the next time he goes out fishing, he'll be ready to go. And as he's doing that, he's listening to this stranger, still at the time, talk about the miraculous and marvelous works of God. And I presume that Jesus had pulled out the same type of sermon he had previously just given. The Spirit of the Lord is upon us, release to the captives, sight to the blind. And Peter just listens, and he's cleaning his net. And the crowd gets bigger, and they keep pressing in on Jesus until he turns to Peter and he says, probably just like this, "Hey, buddy, can I borrow your boat?" I figure that's probably how Jesus talked. "Hey, buddy." So Simon Peter, weary, tired of a night of fishing, pushes the boat back out into the water, and Jesus continues teaching. Now, I don't know if you've ever been up all night long before. Maybe with a sick child, or maybe you've worked a night shift. I've done it a few times with lock-ins with youth groups. And the last one I did, and probably the last one I'll ever do, I stayed up all night long, and then I had made commitments the next day. I stayed up all day the very next day. And by the time I got home, all I wanted to do was go to sleep. I was hungry, and I didn't even care. I just wanted... You've been there? Oh, where you get to that point where you're just like, you know what? The sheep can get out. I don't care. The goats, I guess, can get out. I don't care. I just want to go to sleep. I imagine that's what Peter's feeling here. All he wants to do is sleep. But not just because he'd been up all night. When Jesus finished teaching from the boat, he turns to Peter, "Hey, buddy," and he says, "Put your nets back out in the water." And Peter's got to be like, "I just cleaned them. I just got done cleaning these things." And he begins to lay out for him this terrible, horrible, no good, very bad night. Not only had he been up all night long, he hadn't caught a single fish. Maybe a few sandals, some tin cans, but no fish. Can you imagine? Let's remember that Simon Peter is a professional fisherman. This wasn't just an evening fun trip. It's not like he just elbowed a few buddies and said, "You know what? I don't have anything going on tomorrow. Let's go put the boat out on the lake and let's go fishing all night long. That'll be fun." This is his livelihood. It would be like running your own store and having no customers all day long. Going to the livestock auction and getting no bids on any of your livestock. Sitting in your classroom as a teacher and having no kids. Wait. That might be a bad example. But what's more, now this stranger, a carpenter, has pushed you out into your boat, or has got you to push out your boat, and he's telling you how to fish. Can you imagine that? You're sitting in your store, nobody's come in all day long, you've tried everything you could think of to bring people in, and somebody just wanders in off the street and says, "Hey, have you tried?" You got to be like, "Get out of here." Right? Yet, Simon Peter, compelled by something, obliges. And he puts his net out into the water, and he catches so many fish. The very same water he's been fishing in all night long. And he catches so many fish, he can't even get his net back into the boat. Judith Vorst writes this in the preface to her book, Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day. She writes, "Have you ever had a bad day? A really bad day? And have you ever wondered if you were maybe the only person in the city, the state, the country, the world, the universe who have had these bad days? Well, you're not. I know you're not. Because when my son Alexander was a little boy, he used to have them a lot. And I mean a lot of them. And when I wrote this book for him, I got letters from girls and boys everywhere telling me about their own terrible days. Bad days make us so mad and so sad that sometimes we want to move to where terrible, horrible days maybe don't happen, like Australia. But bad days also come to an end, and when you wake up the next morning, it could be the beginning of a wonderful, marvelous, excellent, very good day. And that is also where Peter finds himself in our story. He has awakened from this terrible, horrible, no good, very bad night to find a wonderful, marvelous, excellent, very good day awaiting him. Here is the God of Abraham, Isaac, David, standing in the form of Jesus in his boat. Can you imagine? And he's calling him to be his disciple. He says, hey, I want you to be one of the only 12 people in the world, in the whole of human history, to get to travel around with me, to walk and eat side by side with God in the flesh. Can you imagine? Calling him to leave a life of fishing, to fish for people. And as great of a miracle as it was to catch boatloads of fish where there are not any fish before being called by Jesus to be a disciple, is an even greater miracle for him and for us. I imagine that Peter and James and John and all of those disciples were just regular guys like we are. Just regular people like you and I. And Jesus chose them like he's choosing you today. It's not just some small thing that we get to wander through. Jesus is calling you to this incredible life of discipleship. It's the start of a wonderful, marvelous, excellent adventure if we choose to follow. I think that just as much as making prayer, scripture reading, tithing, keeping the Sabbath, just as much as all of those things that we talk about as being spiritual disciplines, I think there is something to understanding the spiritual discipline of being held. Of keeping your faith and trusting Jesus during those terrible, no good, very bad days, weeks, months, sometimes even years. Being so disciplined in our faith that the hard moments of life don't break our faith, but instead give us the opportunity to exercise and display our faith. Because the truth is that we all have those days, and sometimes they go far deeper than being clumsy or feeling a little bit sick or getting cum stuck in our hair. I don't ever have that problem. Sometimes our very bad days include losses of jobs or loved ones. Sometimes they mean the end of relationships, and we find ourselves crying out to God a big, fat, why is this happening to me? Ever been there? You see, it's tempting to think that what it means to be a Christian is that nothing will ever go wrong. That you'll always feel joy and peace and never have hard circumstances. But when we look at our lives and the world around us, we know that that is not the truth. But if we have the spiritual discipline to hold on to Jesus during these times, when we have the spiritual discipline to trust Jesus and let down our nets, when we have the spiritual discipline to allow ourselves to be held by God and each other, then we can still find joy and peace, even in the midst of our own terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. So the question is this: what will you do today, tomorrow, next week, next month, next year? What will you do the next time things start to feel like they're crashing in around you? Will you let it be a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day? Or will you choose to believe that even in the midst of this, God is working a wonderful, marvelous, excellent, very good adventure of being a Christian. Jesus is calling you to let down your nets. Peter could have said no. We can say no. But it's far more wonderful to say with Peter, if you say so, if you say so, I will let down my nets.